Of a Sichah, Parshas Naso. This is in Chedech of Gimel, and we started off, or I should say, we left off yesterday in the middle of Eis Beis. We're holding by in Beis by Beis. So we're discussing now that it seems that from the first Medrash, it comes out that it wasn't so alechatchila to bring karbanos on Shabbos, for Shevet Ephraim to bring karbanos on Shabbos, and according to the Gemara in the second Medrash, it comes out that not only was it an abidiyah, but alechatchila Hashem wanted a person, the Shvatim to do this. So then we got into the first way we got into that, according to the first Medrash, it had the din of a korban yachid, which a korban yachid is not Deicha Shabbos, it was only Hirol Lefisha. And according to the second way, the Gemara in the Medrash, he says that the Gemara is speaking that a Shevet is called a Kahal, and since every Shevet brought for his Shevet, since every Nasi brought for his Shevet, so it has the din of a Kahal. They were holding in Beis. Now, so the Rebbe says Beis. The Kula Alma is Shevet Ikri Kal. Or the second way we can learn that every Shevet is called a congregation. However, every Nasi brought, he wasn't allowed to bring, like we said yesterday, from the pot that belonged to the tzibur, or to his Shevet, but he had to bring from his own from his own pocket. Nit von dem was der Shevet bechlolei hat gegeben. Wie steht bei Firusha in Medrash, and Rashi brings this Firusha al Teres, is clear as Mishalehevi v'lei shagav and Mishifte. He wasn't able to collect it from his own. It had to be from his own funds and not from the funds of the tribe. The machlekes in the Medrash Aleph with the Gemara Choli is. So what's the disagreement? What's the dispute between the first Medrash and the Gemara? So he says, "Ladas Medrash v'balder nasi hat fard dem korban nit kevegem Mishifte bleibt es." Ageder von a korban yachid was nicht Deicha Shabbos. Und der Fahrt darf man sagen, als der Heter HaKrava is given a Yidashah. So according to the first way, in other words, the first Medrash, he says that since the actual Shevet, or the Nasi had to bring from his own funds, so therefore it has the Geder of a korban yachid, even though he's bringing it for the entire Shevet. And that's why it was a temporary exception. Shegen das Gemara is chosh mishalei hevi is der hevi aber given als the Mata Yehuda kitz was a yichse a kosel shifte a korban for dem ganzen shevet and zayin korban a korban tzibur was Deicha Shabbos. Now, in contrast with the Gemara, although he brought from his own resources, but who was it for? Like it says for the shevet Yehuda, the pasuk stated his ancestries in terms to the shevet. So it was offering, since he was offering for the entire Shevet, his korban was a communal korban, which is Deicha Shabbos. Okay, this is where we left yesterday. Shloimy the Rabbi says, as the mitzvah eich mavur the dir kalash in Medrash, now we could understand the precise wording in the Medrash. The Medrash says, "We're zokt as von zeh korban nachshem anaminadav." The Medrash says from the pasuk that says from the words, "This is the offering of nachshem ben aminadav." The Gemara says. And the Medrash says, "Lantman up as mishaloi hevi v'lei shagav and mishifte v'hevi." It says that the fact that it says Nachshon ben Aminadav, we learn that he brought from his own resources, and not that he collected funds from his shevet and brought it. Was zok dort b'siyum inyan zeh korban deicha es Shabbos, ve'ein korban deicha es Shabbos. And from this, the Medrash says that this korban overrides Shabbos, but a personal offering does not override Shabbos. Now, what is it I want to bring from this Medrash? So he says, "Was von stimas lashon hashlila ve'ein korban yochad deichas Shabbos." Now, from the fact that it uses a expression like lashon shlila, like it's exclusionary. It says that, but a personal korban does not deichas Shabbos. Unit ve'ein shar korban yochad deichas Shabbos. The Medrash does not say, it says, but a personal korban does not override Shabbos. It doesn't say, but other personal korbanos do not, or at like. Now, what comes out is mashma. So it, l'chayr implies, as the korban anos is nit in gather from korban yochid. So it comes out that the in other words, if it would have said ve'ein shar korban yochid dechas Shabbos, so it's mashma that it had the state of it would have the gather of a korban yochid. But here he says as the korban anasi is nita gather from korban yochid. So on one hand, it comes out that the korban of the nasi is not in the category of a personal offering. On the other hand, from the aloshin ba'aschol salim zek korban dechas Shabbos. But if you look at the beginning of the lashenis that he uses the wording at the beginning. This, what does he say? Zek korban dechas Shabbos. This offering overrides Shabbos. Ve'echter fun was medarf ibrahim haben alimud as is dechas Shabbos. And it says as well that we need to have a special Torah grounds that it overrides Shabbos. So as mashma as the korban anasi or shaychas to korban yochid. So it does imply that the korban nasi does have a connection to korban yochid. On their far darfen alimud miyuchad if them su korban zeh as is decha, and that's why you have to have a distinct pasuk that's needed regarding this type of korban that overrides the Shabbos. Now, Pia now is move on. However, based on the above, makes a lot of sense. Says the nasi hater korban need Likkutei. Since the prince, the nasi, did not collect the korban from his own resources. It had to come from his own resources. It could not come from the resources of his shevet. It comes out as the korban is a korban yachid. Really, the korban is a korban yachid. It's them. As the makav is a nasi the mata hod sein korban dem din von atzi korban tzibur. So even though he's bringing it, even though it has the din of a personal korban, nevertheless, since the korban offering was a korban that the nasi was the nasi of the shevet, so his offering had the legal status of a korban tzibur. So the korban was a korban yachid, but since he brought it for his shevet, had a din of a korban tzibur. Okay, so now he says in Gimel, Api kanal kumteis. So on this basis, it comes out as the zweite medrash hanal sif aleph, and the second medrash. Osloit im is the hakrava from the korban nasi b'Shabbos. Melachat chila given an inyan kohigen ukedas haGemara hainu hach. That according to the medrash, and according to the Gemara, the fact that the Nasiim brought, or the Nasi Shevet Ephraim brought the korban, it was l'chatchila. It was a positive thing. It was a proper thing. It was a proper function, like the Gemara says. As a makar given them korban b'Shabbos, while says a korban tzibur. The reason why the Nasi brought the korban on Shabbos is because it had the category, it had the gather of a korban tzibur. So you don't have to come on to start saying that it was only a temporary exception. It was a roshah. We're moving b'pashat. It's self-understood as is adeichik achi gadol zu sagen as der Rani amarti the Moshe nasi echad chuli meint me nit amir nasi echad gamer b'chlal as nit given kin amir pratis beis inyan. It's also, it doesn't make sense to say, it's extremely shvach to say that when Hashem says that I told Moshe one nasi, does not refer to the statement of one nasi, and in general, there was no specific instruction, but the page nor thus meant min dehiro within klal l'deres. Rather, in other words, it's extremely shver to say that that Hashem says, I told Moshe one nasi, does not refer to the Torah statement one nasi. In general, there was no specific instructions then, but it refers to the general instructions and halacha for all generations. Hashevet ikri kol, that a tribe is defined as a congregation. Or the korban hanasi hadadin for the korban shevet, or that the korban of the nasi has the halachas of a korban shevet. So what's the Rebbe's question? So now the question comes back. What is the reasoning behind the machlekes between the two midrashim? Why does one medrash say that it was like a b'di'evet that they brought the korban, and the second medrash comes out that l'chatchila this is what Hashem wanted? Now, so he says like this: what's the explanation? Loit beidim midrashim zayin the karbonis hamiluim from Chanukas hamizbeach was ein kemeson deiris given nor lefi shah, or begeder hirosha. So he says that according to both midrashim, the dedication that the dedication offerings to inaugurate the mizbeach, and they were not brought for future generations, were only a temporary exception, because when the Yidden brought the karbonis by Shivas Yemei Miluim, so there's like halachas over there that like the Rambam says, it was never such halachas. They brought very different types of karbonis, and it was like just a mamash, a temporary hayra for dafka by Shivas Yemei Miluim. Azay the andere pratim from karbonis and nesim v'chazan given the shah begeder hayra shah v'derech zeh bekama from the karbonis Yemei Miluim. The norm mitzad der hayra shah is given their heter to makruv zayin and korban anasi b'Shabbos. So these dedications were like other aspects of the Nesim's karbonis that were temporary and considered temporary exceptions. Many of the karbonis offered during the inauguration days had this status. And it was only because of this temporary exception that karbonis of the Nasi of Shabbos was permitted. Nor dem heter came and learn of tzviyafan. So it's actually interesting. We spoke about this yesterday. I didn't learn the rest of the Sichah, but I guess the Eibishter gave me the right words, because Mamish, the Rebbe says this, not exactly like I said it, but a little bit. We alluded to the emes. So he says like this. He says, Nor dem heter came and learn of tzviyafan. He says that the heter you can learn two ways. The Isser Shabbos is tchuya. The Isser Shabbos is pushed off, as the Isser Malacha is betok ve'emid. But really, so like this. When you say, let's say, and he's going to bring in a second, Pikuach Nefesh Deiches Shabbos. So either you say it's Deicher or Hutra. So when you say that the Isser Shabbos is Tchuya, it's pushed off, as the Isser Malacha is betok ve'emid, which means that the Isser is still very strong. But Chanukah Samizbech is stronger and then pushes off Shabbos. Other than Eifim from Hutra. Or you're going to say it in a way of like that it's Hutra, that it's permitted. As the Malacha is Dom Lechatchila nit Nesser Gevar, nor is Yizadavar HaMutter B'Shabbos. That not that the Malacha was Lechatchila Aser, but it is Lechatchila Mutter on Shabbos. This is like the famous machlekes that we said yesterday regarding saving a life on Shabbos and many other halachas, whether saving a life overrides the Shabbos, which means it's tchuya, or do I say that the pikuach nefesh now it makes everything permitted? So he says, and this is the source achiluk tzvishen the tzvei midrashim, and this is the reasoning behind the differences between the two midrashim. Later, drashas also anasim shaleika hagen is there heter akravan or ba'ifin dechuya. So according to the first medrash that the Nesim acted improperly, so the allowance to offer a carbon was only because it is Tchuya Shabbos, it overrides Shabbos. The karbonas haben deichen given them Isser Shabbos on Azait, which means that the karbonas pushed away the Isser on Shabbos to the side. Oich la'achri atchia is der Isser misad atzma nit bottle geworden, nor wird blois nitcha der far was carbon and Nesim chav v'nei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So even after this bringing karbonis overrides Shabbos, the Isser was not nullified, but only it supersedes, since the korban of the Nesim were precious before Hashem. Now that's the medrash halt aber as das is ba'ifin hutra. However, the second medrash maintains that the Isser Shabbos was completely mutter. Das heißt, is ageder shel davar heter akrovas karbonis chanukas hamizbeach b'Shabbos, meaning that the karbonis that they brought by the inauguration was defined as something permitted. In them falls the Isser Malacha Shabbos, which means that the Malacha Isser on Shabbos never applied to begin with. Therefore, is the Medrash Madrish nit nor kemenit zogen chilash Shabbos or the Shleika Hegen nor adraba. Sakim tzivei loy al piv asa shani amarti. That's why the Medrash emphasizes not only we cannot say that they desecrated Shabbos or that they acted improperly, but on the contrary, they were fulfilling the command of they did not do this on their own accord, for I told Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, So now we have a little bit. Okay, we're not going to finish now. Maybe tonight we can finish by Tzimnach. Okay, so the Rebbe says this: Al Pizeh volt men euch geken mevar sein for was in Medrash Anal, Sif Beis. If in pasuk Zeh Korban Nachshot Chuli steht der Lashon Zeh Korban Deiches HaShabbos, ve'in Korban Yochid Deiches HaShabbos. Now, based on this, we could explain why in the above medrash quoted on the end of the section of Sif Beis, the pasuk says this is the offering of Nachshin, and the medrash says this offering overrides Shabbos, but a personal offering does not. Frier wird gesagt, wie der Din ist da bei Kiyum bei Korban Nasi, Zeh Korban Deichem. Und danach, wie der Din ist bei Korban Yochid Bechlal, ein Korban Yochid Chuli. Was das ist beseder Hafuch, wie es wird gesagt in Medrash Anal, Sif Beis. B'chol Mokim ein Korban Yochid Deiches HaShabbos, V'kan Korban Yochid Deiches HaShabbos. So we'll lead off with this question that the Chayra comes out that based on the first medrash, the halacha here regarding the offerings of the Nasi says this korban overrides. And this is the general halacha regarding a korban yachid, but we know that a personal korban does not override Shabbos. And this follows the opposite order of the medrash mentioned in the Sif Aleph, that a personal korban never overrides Shabbos, but here was a personal offering. Okay. We'll stop over here. Have a good Shabbos.